affiliates.
Wow.
I'd like to welcome each of you here to the Arkansas Section 529 Plan Review Committee meeting on Thursday, March the 7th, 2024, 10 a.m. We're about 6 minutes behind schedule. Welcome it. I call this meeting to order. We have a quorum, and so we are about to go directly into the business. The first thing I'd like to do is to seek approval of the minutes from our last meeting, and that meeting was the minutes of the meeting for Thursday, November the 30th, 2023 at 10 a.m. here in the same room here at the Victory Village. So those minutes have been provided to you in advance. I think they're also in front of you today. Are there any changes or additions or that anyone would propose? If not, I would seek a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, Fran Jansen, it's now time for our director's report, so I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Thank you. Just a few things. Both Chris and I had the opportunity to sit down individually with Mark and with Ken just to officially welcome them to the 529 committee and have individual, conversations about answering any of the questions and just further explaining what the expectations were at these meetings. So we were very appreciative of both of your times, and you both had great questions for us, and you also were gracious enough to connect us a little more further with the career technical education group, and that resulted in Chris being asked to present at I guess there are a number of educators who are coming in. Career technical educators are meeting from around the state, and we'll have about 5 or 10 minutes of their time to talk about the 529 plan and how it works with people pursuing those fields. The other thing that Dr. Warden agreed to help us with is there is and you correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but there's a platform called Flywire, a payment platform that connects schools and colleges and universities directly to 529 plans. And this kind of originated, this conversation originated because I believe it was somebody in your office was having trouble sending a payment to the university in Arkansas that his son was attending. And so bottom line is, it's advantageous. It doesn't cost anything for schools to offer the Flywire platform. And we feel like it's purely just an educational deficit that they just don't know it exists. And so Dr. Warden offered if we could help him pin an email to the universities. That's not like a hard sell. It's just, hey, just making sure you all are aware that this is out there. It saves time and effort for your staff, and it's also beneficial to your students and their families. So Chris has been working with you on that email, and we've provided you with the list of the universities and colleges that currently don't use it.
Right. We had someone on the other board I served on, and I come to realize I was on the 529 board and said, well, you know what? Hey, about that, I had to try to pay the school, and it was kind of an archaic paperwork process, and we had to send this in, submit that, and they came to me and I paid the school rather than being direct deposit. So there's a handful of schools that don't utilize the platform, and it's to their benefit. So we're going to send that. Chris has that pin. We're just going to send it out this week. Nicole's been out and this week, so it'll either go out tomorrow or the next week. Just a correspondence that says, hey, this is for your benefit. These funds come directly to you instead of having, cut out the middleman and the shuffling. So hopefully we'll get some takers on that. Yeah. I think we will.
So that's we
can do other reminders, if we need to do that.
I think coming from you, we'll get a lot more attention, from them than like people like us that they don't
Well, I
know,
don't
so.
know. We'll
appreciate
see,
that.
they don't listen very often. Maybe work out on this. We'll
Maybe
see.
if they see the words, this will help you. And
money.
then
No money.
the other, well, we do say there's no cost to you for this. Do you want to briefly update them on the legislative?
Yeah, so I am part of the federal legislative efforts subcommittee with the National Association of State Treasurers. And I wanted to make everybody aware that there is a great bill out there, Senate Bill 722 in the US Senate. And it's got a sister House bill as well. It's the Freedom to Invest in Tomorrow's Workforce Act. And it'll expand qualified uses for the 529 funds to allow post-secondary credentials such as licenses, certifications, or certificates. And it references the definitions in the Workforce Opportunity Innovation Act. I'm sure Commissioner Warden is very familiar with that. So it's very exciting. We're hoping that it goes through. It would definitely, again, redefine the 529 plan. At first it was a college saving plan, and then technical and trade schools, it became an education savings plan. This would really shift it towards a career savings plan in general.
So we'll keep you all posted on, there's a lot of bipartisan support. I mean, it's
Huge.
it's encouraging to
Yeah,
see
just for
that.
context, we've got over 170 private career tech schools in the state, so we're looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. The other thing I was just, if you all recall at our last meeting, we talked about the new ad agency communications group. And just an update, that transition's going really, really well. We're about to launch a series of print ads that will be in a lot of the publications around the state. And so in my time, and I believe your time here, it's the first time we've done print ads. So it will just be interesting to see if, in addition to the social media presence that we've had, if we're reaching like more grandparents, because some of these are publications that are geared toward the older reader. So, and then we were going to invite some members of the ad agency to maybe come to the next meeting, just to introduce themselves and give an idea of kind of their vision and successes that we've had to that point. So that will probably be this summer sometime. Then the last thing is, at the last meeting, I mentioned this pilot that we're doing with the preschools, where we're going to sponsor a preschool at graduation. And so we are moving forward with that. We got approval to sponsor Second Presbyterian preschool graduation. And we are going to be able to promote our message internally about the 529 using the communication tools that they send out, the little weekly newsletters to the parents. And then at the event, apparently for 75 kids, they expect 500 people at this graduation. So we've branded their little lane or their little medals that they get with our logo, and we have a banner congratulating the graduates. And then we're also in an effort to capture names and addresses for future, they'll have the option to email, to opt into this. But we're going to have a register to win a $529 in a 529 account for your graduate that you're there supporting.
I
So
don't know where they got the $529.
we were trying to do 530, but the IRS, 529. So that will be, and we think that will be we'll get a lot of traction on that. So, and then depending on how successful this is, it may be something we start doing every year. So, okay, that is it. That completes my
I want
report.
to add one comment on the fly wire,
Yes, sir.
and that is those who aren't doing it they're missing an opportunity to get their money faster, easier, and electronically. So it will, over time, they'll get their money faster, and it'll be much more accurate. You don't have any transcription and whatever paperwork, so it really should be an advantage to them at no cost.
Right.
Actually, an increase in their revenue is gonna make it easier for people to get the money to the school and faster. So, just a comment. Okay, I guess it's John Peace.
Oh, wait, I need to,
You said you were through.
well, I'm done with my report, but now I have to ask approval for the checks and invoices.
You said, don't say that on there.
Semantics. All right, so gentlemen, you were sent a list of checks and invoices that we processed, and I didn't know if you had any questions about these. And if not, I'll ask for a motion to approve.
I'll move. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The motion is approved.
Now I'm done.
Yeah.
You're on, man.
Budget report, well, the market's been good, so our income has been good. I project that we'll probably be about $100,000 over budget on the income side. The marketing, which is our biggest expense, is under budget. I predict it'll be about $60,000 under budget. So we should have a good end of the year. Right now, the income has exceeded the expenses by about $177,000. Excited there. Bank account is at $485,000, and then we've got about 9,600 in First Street.
Excellent report. Do we need a motion for approval of that or?
No, sir.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, John. Okay, next on the list is Kimberly Shockley coming in from Rhode Island.
Hailing from Rhode Island, yes, and yet another wonderful trip. Everyone I've met has been so nice. No one offered me a ride, but other than that. But I'm waiting.
Trip's not over yet.
Yeah, Amanda offered me a ride today, so I'm batting 1,000 on that. The agenda, just gonna go over different aspects of the direct account. Everything's going in a positive direction, which is really great, even with withdrawals up as they should be. For those going to school, we're still seeing positive growth, which is great. If you turn to page 3, you can see that our assets are back to their height, which is where they were at the end of 2021. In that time, we saw less distributions coming out where either people were taking semesters off because of COVID or not paying for room and board because they were learning from home. We're seeing the dips again where tuition is due, which is great, but still our net assets are almost $600 million.
We've talked about this before, but you know, that's a lot of money, and this is Arkansas.
I got the right plan, yeah.
Well done.
I mean, the point is, I mean, that's a lot of money for Arkansas to be.
Sorry to interrupt, for just, so as of, we did hit $604,754,031 at the end of February. So we did hit the $600 million mark. My name is John Saldana and I work with the Census.
Yeah, and if you'll see on a later slide, most of the account owners in this account are from Arkansas.
Amazing.
Yeah, so people want to save for their futures, they want to save for their kids' futures, no matter where you live in the country, I think, which is great. And there are a lot of 529s that aren't seeing the positive growth that Arkansas is. So I think Fran and Chris are probably a real asset in that, in getting the word out to your local residents about the accounts. So kudos. As you can see on page 4, contributions are up 60 million in contributions, which is a 2% increase year over year from 2022. Going on to page 5. You know, it's funny with 529s, unlike other investments where you just want people to save forever, we're looking for people to take the money. We're looking for people to go to school now, whatever other option they have as far as taking the money. So we are seeing withdrawals at their height for the December timeline over the past over that past 4-year time period. which, like I said, that's what we want to see. We want to see these kids going to school, utilizing these funds for exactly what their parents or grandparents were saving them for. If you look at our net flows on page 6, that tells even more of the story, where our net is 7.2 million. So after withdrawals, we're still seeing positive inflows to these accounts, which when you think about the fact that we withdraw in thousands of dollars and we contribute in tens or hundreds of dollars, seeing that net positive is a huge asset to the Arkansas plan. This, if you put it all in a straight line, you'd see just such constant growth in the number of funded accounts for the Brighter Future Direct Plan. I don't think you could ask for more as far as this type of plan. When you look, it was about 30,000 plans 4 years ago. We've increased by 5,000 over the past 4 years, which you know, you guys, even Arkansas has more than one plan. So to see this just direct is great for Arkansas residents.
You're talking about national trends, and are other states seeing the same growth?
No, not all states are seeing the same growth, and a lot of states are seeing.
Participation, I mean.
Can you be more specific?
I mean, growth in participation rates, like the number of plans.
Yeah, so not all states are seeing growth like that. Some states are much older plans, so
Right.
they're seeing a lot more on the withdrawal side, unfortunately, compared to that inflow. And sometimes, you know, there are plans in the country that have just kind of taken over for some other plans, like the Virginia plan, for instance. Every advisor you know mentions the Virginia plan. I don't think Arkansas is seeing that sort of loss.
We don't have an alternative plan at this point. I mean, I know Florida has one, and I've heard that mentioned a time or two.
Well, you have a direct and an advisor, which John will speak about in a
Oh,
little
yeah,
bit.
I understand.
But you
the
don't
direct
have like a
advice.
tuition,
There's not like an Arkansas,
plan or anything.
tuition savings plan.
not
for-
that I know of.
No, lots
Okay.
of-
No, Arkansas doesn't have anything like that.
So I wondered, we know we're up against an enrollment cliff just by birth rates, right? Like 2025, just the number of people graduating high school nationally, and that's not really affecting us as much as it's gonna affect maybe the Northeast and Midwest. So I'm just kind of thinking about how that affects our contributions total and our withdrawals total.
Yeah, I mean, making the plan younger is definitely something that we're always looking to do. Getting those 0 to 5, 0 to 7 accounts opened up, just so that the contributions keep coming. I think we still haven't seen the impact that we might see from K through 12. You know, people putting in really to take out much sooner. The other change that Arkansas hasn't seen much of an impact from that other plans have is the ability to roll over. So if you have an older plan that you just kept money in because either your child didn't use it or they didn't use it all, you can now roll over to a Roth IRA. Like I said, I think because your plan doesn't have that age that some other plans have that came out in the 97, is that when these plans started? I'm not even sure.
99.
So you mean like
They're seeing some fall off in
the
dollars,
student
not in.
completes their education without using the 529, so then they take that and roll it over into something else.
Yeah.
On their own or the student's behalf, it just depends on the
Yeah, you can roll it to a Roth now without the penalty.
nice.
Or the
There's
tax
some
implication.
stipulations, but.
Yeah, there's quite a few stipulations. What's really great about the stipulations, I think, is that it's helping people who used it correctly and just still have money left. It has to be at least 15 years old.
Right.
You know, there's different
And the Roth has to be in
caveats
the name of the
of the
beneficiary.
beneficiary.
That's my,
Yeah.
that was my question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And legally, Arkansas has not adopted that legislation. It has been adopted on the federal level, but we're in the process of determining whether we can present a bill during this fiscal session that will bring us in line with federal, or if we need to wait till the regular session. We're hoping we can get it introduced and passed, since it's merely mirroring, you know, what the
Seems like a
fed,
pretty easy lift.
we're hoping. So, but if not, we'll definitely introduce it. So right now, for people who are doing that, if someone is doing that, it's considered an unqualified expense, right?
Yeah.
They're having, so on the earnings, but hopefully we'll get it in line with federal. Because it's a great option.
The enhanced tax deduction in Arkansas only came out a few years ago. So that's another big thing that's helping contributions grow in Arkansas. Before, when the tax deduction was a lot lower or non-existent, essentially people could invest in other state plans and there wasn't a massive tax incentive for them to invest in the Arkansas plans. But whenever those tax deductions kicked in at the higher level, which I think was maybe like 6 years ago or around that time, you started seeing flows come to the in-state plans more, and that has really contributed to the overall growth in recent years. So that is a big benefit in the state.
Yeah, that is true. States that offer a better tax advantage and only to their state plan. You know, most plans aren't that different from each other. There's subtle caveats, but you know, you're not reinventing the wheel with most of them. Giving that tax advantage to your residents gives them a better incentive to go into your accounts. I mean, that's true, John. Thank you. The average size of a funded account is a little under $17,000. That's also increasing nicely from the beginning to the end of the year. Not at a tight, but I think $17,000 as an average funded size is very respectable, especially when you see that the larger accounts are exactly where they should be on the next page. You know, our younger account owners under probably about $8,000. And then as the child ages, they're keeping the funds in there. So like I said, I'm curious how K through 12 will start impacting, but right now these are going exactly how you'd expect them to for college savings. I'll let John speak more to the advisor plan. I just put this plan in here kind of as a way of, they have about half the funded accounts as the local plan, but when you look at those average balances, those are the people who have the money to save, have the money to invest, and they're choosing to stay with the Arkansas advisor plan. The last page is just some information about your new gift and you promise rewards programs, how much money is being put into accounts based on gifting and through utilizing the credit card and other forms of the you promise reward. Does anyone have any questions on just the direct plan?
Questions? Okay. Thank you, Kimberly. Amanda,
Think I'm up.
welcome to Little Rock.
Thank you.
You ever been here before?
I have never been here before.
Oh.
It's been very nice. Fran has been a wonderful tour guide. She took us around last night to show us a little bit, so far so good.
Well, we had nice weather for you to walk.
We did.
Yes, it was
Yes,
very
did,
nice.
yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
Almost ended up at a Stevie Nicks concert, but
Plan in advance.
No idea.
Who would have thought? But thank you. And are you putting anything up there or no? Okay, good. I'm just used to my old ways, but it's really nice to be here in person with everybody. So I'm going to start, and I feel like Kim kind of set me up for this. But on page 4, just to go over you know, some hot topics, some trends that we're seeing within the industry. And one of them is this Secure Act 2.0. So that provision which allows rollovers from a 529 plan into a Roth IRA. There's a lot of stipulations behind it. There was a lot of waiting for guidance on exactly kind of how it would play out. We're still waiting a little bit, but I thought it might be helpful. So, you know, the Vanguard plan, which is one that we house internally. We have, you know, some stats that we've seen within the first 2 months of the year, which I thought was kind of interesting. I actually sit very close to the phones, and there were, I think, 1,500 calls within the first 2 months of the year that they tagged as Secure 2.0 calls. Really just a lot of, you know, participants, parents wondering, how does this impact me? You know, is this something I can take advantage of? So a lot higher call volumes, a lot of questions out there. We saw 290 rollovers year to date. So that's only about, I think that's less than 2% of the total participants that we deemed as being eligible to be able to take advantage of this. So it's kind of a low uptick so far, but interest, and I think just a lot of, you know, wondering how does this impact me? And we continue to hear things within the industry as to how how this will play out. So, something we keep watching. I know that, you think about it from, will a person invest in a new account based on the fact that this provision is out there? I think that's kind of yet to be seen. But, the fact that there are additional ways that you can use these funds, it's not
I
a
get
bad
asked
thing.
that a lot. What
Absolutely,
if
yeah.
my child ends up not going
Mhm.
to college or using it? And we'll just be able to add that to the list of, well, you can do this, or
Mhm.
now this in the future.
Absolutely, yeah. And I would think especially even on the advisor front as well, these are a lot of the questions that advisors are being asked. So, to be able to kind of get that awareness out there, I think is important. So just something we continue to hear about. And then, the other thing, just markets, they continue to influence behavior. Fortunately, 2023 was a really good year for the markets, very different than 2022. It seems common sense, but when the markets are doing well, people tend to be more apt to contribute to their plans. A little bit different when the markets aren't doing well, a little bit uncertainty, they're less apt to do that. So you will see contributions down. I think Kim kind of showed this in her report. Contributions tend to be down during those years or those months where, the markets aren't doing well, and, vice versa when the markets are doing well. So Vanguard does a survey, it's every other month, just to kind of figure out what is investor sentiment. And this is not just the sentiment of 529 investors in general. And for us, that's helpful to know because, again, how you feel is ultimately potentially how you're going to invest your funds. So at the end of 2023, going into 2024, investors were actually really optimistic. Coming off of 2023, it's a great year. The US economy has been very resilient, more resilient than most of us thought it would be. So I thought that just was an interesting point because, we'll see where 2024 goes. I'm going to talk about it in a little bit, and I'm sure John will touch on it as well. We didn't expect 2023 to be as good as it was, but it was. The economy continues to be resilient. Not to be the bearer of bad news, but we don't see that continue forever. The potential for a very mild recession towards the second half of 2024 is, in our eyes, pretty high. So, something that does influence investor behavior and something that, we continue to look at. So I will jump ahead, just to take a quick look back on 2023. So slide 6. So this is through the end of the year, focused on the fourth quarter. So the markets, both stocks and bonds, as I mentioned, they were up for the year, as well as the quarter. As we saw the tighter monetary policy, so those increase in interest rates that we saw in 2022, really starting to work its way through the market to tame inflation. US stocks and bonds also really rallied within the fourth quarter of last year, as anticipation that the Fed will cut rates multiple times in 2024. So the market was reacting to that. And also on the other side of that, we're really starting to see the positive effects of those higher interest rates. So in 2022, rates increased pretty rapidly, had a negative impact on the bond market. But now we are seeing those higher coupon rates, and people are starting to, realize that within their returns. So year to date in 2024, it's been somewhat mixed. So through February, the equity markets have been up slightly, bond markets down slightly. A lot of people are watching the Fed to see what their next step will be. Although 1-year returns through year to date, end of February, still remain positive as well. Any questions on kind of where the markets have been? I thought I might spend a couple minutes, and I know we have a tight agenda here, but I thought I'd just spend a couple minutes just kind of looking forward, and then happy to open it up to questions.
Okay, move on.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so I'm just
Where's
gonna
forward?
So I'm just gonna move us forward, slide 15. So this slide shows our forecast for the year. As I mentioned, all eyes really are on the Fed. So they've kept rates steady since July of last year. That was after they a pretty historic increase over 2022 into 2023. So at the next meeting, which I think is later this month, we, and as well as I think industry, I'm assuming, BlackRock feels the same. We're not projecting any rate cuts in March, and actually May seems a low probability as well. Our thought is they'll start towards the second half of the year to do rate cuts, as we continue to see things work their way through the economy. I mean, we're still getting surprises with job reports. Some of that inflation tends to be a little bit stickier, even though we did see some downward momentum last year within inflation. And as I mentioned, we are looking at the potential for a mild recession later in the year, but I feel like on a day-to-day basis that can change. Can that bump to 2025? Based on any sort of industry reports that come out there, that's something we continue to watch.
Political environment too. The political environment too.
Yes, very good point. And then
New faces. Yeah.
And then the last thing I'll mention, just on slide 16. So one of the headlines for our outlook for 2024 was bonds are back. Which after a very long period of low rates is a good thing, we think. And even though there's projections of rate cuts towards the second half of 2024, as you can see on this slide, we're not projecting that it's going to go all the way back down to zero. So rates still will remain somewhat elevated, which is good for bond investors. When you think about the investors within the Arkansas plan, they're investing in a target enrollment portfolio that has bonds in it. I think all of the, almost all of the portfolios that you all have some input of bonds in it, so that portion will help them, especially as they get closer to that target enrollment time period when they're going to start withdrawing the funds. So all positive things that we see for that. Again, bonds had a really rough year in 2022. So this is kind of the time for them to shine, if you will. I will pause there. I don't know if there are any specific questions on the fund itself or any of the portfolios. I don't want to steal too much of John's presentation.
You're doing a lot of the work for me.
I'm looking, are you through?
I am through asking for questions, but
Okay.
other
Any
than that,
questions? Yeah, please. You got the experts here now. Everybody, thank you very much. I mean, yeah, band up. I'm old. I can get away with this. John Park.
Yeah, so I will just rip off of some of the things that Amanda started. I won't go into all the investment deck, but feel free to take a look at it. Yeah, I mean, 2023 was kind of the inverse of what 2022 was. 2022 for the market was kind of a correlated, horrible market for equities and bonds. You started off the year okay, we're pretty good actually. On the tail of 2021, great market year. 2022 started off looking, pretty good, and it just fell out of it, right? And 2023 was kind of the opposite of that, which was, continuation of the bad markets in 2022, and then around mid-year it started to really improve, right? So assets kind of dipped, they kind of by the end of the year recovered, and things were looking much more exuberant, right? And the market whipsaws between fear and exuberance all the time. And I think, in addition to all the things that Amanda stated, I think that what impacts investor behavior and market behavior just in general is just all of these other things out there, right? That distract people, like the election, right? Obviously that's not a distraction, that's very important to the, the forward path of the United States and the world. But you have the continuing conflict in Ukraine, you have this emerging conflict now 3 months in the Middle East. And, you have one trade path, obviously, that accounts for a huge amount of global shipping trade being impacted by that conflict. And not to mention oil prices, et cetera. So long story short is that, the path of inflation while moderating, still, as Amanda was saying, still has its blips, right? So from economic report to economic report, you're just not exactly sure. The trend has been overall positive. I think that the amplitude of the blips in either direction has moderated, and it's closing in on, generally where the markets and, pundits kind of are predicting in terms of the path of inflation, which is increased moderation, but not enough and not consistently enough for the Fed to pull the trigger on rate cuts, right? So the ECB, other federal banks, state banks are not decreasing rates just yet, right? So the market is kind of every single time that there's a slightly positive news, tidbit from the market, from the overall markets, they kind of react in a negative way because of the fact that they, negative news leads to a possible rate cut. Positive news in terms of more economic activity leads to the Fed not doing anything, right? And so that's kind of where we are right now. I think that overall, the pundits on Wall Street have come around to the idea that, possibly a soft landing for the economy is in the cards, but I think that there's, a variety of views on that and exactly when the Fed will cut rates. So that's kind of just the overall economic picture. And as Amanda said, that all plays into investor behavior. When the markets are doing well, people are more happy to invest more. They have more money to invest. When the markets aren't doing well, they invest less, right? And you've seen that. So I will also talk about Secure 2.0 because we have gotten feedback from a number of plans that we work with. And interestingly enough, there's a lot more interest about the Roth IRA rollover on the direct plan side of the marketplace because of the fact that, they read about it in the news. This is something that's like, just happened effective January 1st, and there's a lot of questions about it. And people that have money that, that's left over, they're inquiring about how they can roll that into a Roth IRA. On the advisor side, there are questions about it, there are conversations, but there hasn't been as much rollover activity because of the fact that there's still some uncertainty about exactly how the rollover process will work. More broadly, questions about, if you rolled over from one plan to another, does it reset the clock? All these limitations that they have questions about. So broker dealers and financial advisors have just in general not been as enthusiastic about telling their clients to roll the money now. They're basically saying, wait, see what happens with the regulations. There was a big question in the marketplace in terms of, is it going to be a net positive where more money is going to come in because this is a feature now? Or is it going to be a net negative for the industry where money's going to be flowing out? And I think that from the advisor side of the equation, there's definitely the sense that it's a net positive. There are a lot of financial advisors that I've spoken to that have said, well, this is one of the biggest objections, as you said, about just opening an account. What happens if, I have too much money? What happens if my child doesn't go to college for whatever reason? And even though that's not the case where you have too much money for like 98% of the accounts in the marketplace, we just talked about some of the average balances, right? So the average balance on the direct sold side being around 17,000, on the advisor side 44,000. The cost of attending college for 4 years, way more than that, right? So most people are going to be 100% depleted by the time they're done with their college journey. So even though it's great that you have this additional flexibility, it's not going to be something that the average person still takes advantage of, but it does, allay one of the fears that's out there, which is like, what happens if my money gets stuck? Will I get penalized, right? So for advisor conversations, I think it's a net positive for sure. And a lot of broker dealers, I was speaking to Merrill Lynch the other day, they're actively engaging financial advisors, and financial advisors are actively engaging with their clients to open up new accounts on the back of this change.
And I think another thing that's helping alleviate some of the fears in the industry about this rollover, one of the provisions is that you're still capped on how much you can roll over per year into the Roth IRA.
Yep.
That and the number of eligible accounts, I've run some preliminary numbers on the direct sold plan. I haven't looked at the advisor plan yet, but the number of accounts that we have right now that are 15 years or older, are not a lot.
Yeah, pretty small, pretty small. But anything that's a conversation starter
Mhm.
in terms of getting people to be focused on, this need, which is the second largest savings goal for a typical family in the United States, first being retirement, second being, trying to finance your kids' education. Anything that sparks that conversation is a net positive. So we view it as a net positive change, just like any of these additional qualified expenses for accreditations or professional licenses or trades licenses or trade, education or something like that. All these things I think are positive because it makes the umbrella bigger, for people to consider using this as a vehicle for savings. So all positive things. To get into the specifics of the flows within the advisor sold plan, if you flip to page 9 of that deck, kind of tracking similarly in terms of the
Page 9. Mhm.
So a recap of 2023, the plan ended up at 713 million. Like I just mentioned, it was up 16% from the previous year end. Previous year before that in 2022, it was down 12%, right? So kind of flipped and added some, hit a new high water mark, which is awesome. And at the end of February, we're now at 725 million new high water, right? So hopefully it's just a way station on the way to 800 million, but the plan, we've seen strong growth in the plan. Obviously, strong market helps that, but the flows have been good as well. Just since 2022 year end, 2023 year end, we've seen a 2% increase in assets. We also added Ameriprise, which is one of the biggest broker-dealer firms in the United States, as a distribution partner. We saw that some financial advisors from Ameriprise actually opened accounts in the state of Arkansas, so we're encouraged by that. If you flip to the next slide, to recap, just Arkansas specific assets at the end of 2023, there were 77 million in total assets. That was an 18% increase from the year before. We added a few more firms, so that was a 5% increase. There are now 60 firms that are selling the plan within the state of Arkansas. Slight increase in financial advisors, 5% increase in accounts, which we find encouraging, and a 12% increase in average account size. And, similar kind of tracking on slide 11, obviously it's early days, just 2 months in, but, the market is continuing to help the plan. What's notable on the right-hand side is that Edward Jones is now up to 200 advisors in the state, which is pretty incredible. LPL also adding advisors. They're now at 46 advisors in the state. So, big firms, big investment within the state of Arkansas. I'm excited to see that. Overall, as I said before, the plan is trending above, the advisor sold space just in general. There's one big dog in the space, which is the American Funds Virginia plan, which has had kind of super normal growth compared to the rest of the plans. But the Arkansas plan is also growing, which says a lot, considering the fact that overall there has been more of a shift toward direct sold plans in the industry versus advisor sold plans, but that hasn't been the case for the Arkansas plan. The Arkansas plan is growing at a pace that's much higher than normal compared to other advisor sold plans.
John, I had a quick question about
Yeah.
Ameriprise. On the ladder here on slide 11, 2 parts to the question. How many Arkansas advisors does Ameriprise have, and do you see them climbing up this ladder?
Yeah, I mean, so far, I think it's only like 2 or 3.
Oh, really?
But do I see them climbing up the ladder? My answer is most likely yes. I think that, as they just become more aware that the plan is available, then you'll have more utilization. So I think the answer is most likely yes.
Awesome.
Is that $69 million asset number correct?
Oh, you know what? Maybe it's not actually. That's a good question. I don't think I changed that. It should be closer to 77 million.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
So, yeah, I will have to revise that number. Good catch. But yeah, all positive things, in the state, I would say. Like I said, the tax, in-state tax advantage has been, really good. You know, win in the sales of, Arkansas asset growth. So there's a good story there. I think that, this plan, just so you know, at 44,000 in terms of average account size, is actually one of the biggest plans in the country from an average account size perspective. And that has a lot to do with the, registered investment advisor kind of roots of the plan. So yeah, there are a lot of sort of unusual in a positive way, things about the advisor sold plan for the city.
Thank you. Great report. Okay, and you conclude your report.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to thank Kimberly and Amanda and John for coming. Y'all come a long way to see us here in Little Rock. And it's nice with Amanda. I think this is your first time here. We've seen the other two on a regular basis, which is great to have y'all here. We appreciate you coming, taking that extra effort to be here. So thank you. Right, we got landmark. Should we make a couple of chairs?
Oh, yeah, I was
No,
gonna
no,
say,
it's
why
not.
I can go sit over here if you guys wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay. And y'all,
Just
so
sit right
y'all-
here.
you're not gonna,
I know.
you can't sit down there.
You gotta be in front of me.
I wanna see you. Thank you.
I promise you, you'll always be able to hear me. And now Brad's gonna make me sit down here in the hot seat, like Amanda was.
You need a man?
Thank you for having us here today. It's nice to see everybody. I always enjoy these meetings because I get to see people that I've worked with a lot over the phone and on Teams calls and emails, and now you're here in person, so I had to give John a hug. That's when I walked in. The good old Southern hello.
There you go.
And it's nice to meet these two ladies in person too, so I appreciate the opportunity. We are here to present the audit reports for both the direct and advisor sold plan. And Treasurer, I don't know if you know much about Landmark, but we've been working with this plan since 2008. And we work with about 25 plans across the United States. So I consider us to be experts. I know there are other firms that may audit one or two plans, but I feel like our firm does more than many other firms in the United States. So we're really proud about that. But we got our start with the Arkansas plan, so this is our baby. It's probably why we don't raise fees very much, because we're appreciative. We're appreciative of the business. So you have in front of you the audit reports for each of the plans and a couple of letters, and I'm going to let Greg talk about what's in the content of those documents briefly. And then we have some history for you that I think is fascinating. I know the presentation that John had some history on the advisor sold plan. Assets under management for like the past 5 or 6 years. We go all the way back to 2010, right? So it's just interesting to look at that. So take it away.
Well, thank you. So that's a lot of information. So we have 2 sets of financial statements along with 2 sets of the audit communication letter. They are, for the most part, the same. So I'm going to kind of go over the high points of each, and then we'll, like Patty said, we're going to the history from 2010. So we audited both the advisor plan and the direct plan in accordance with auditing standards. So there was a clean opinion. Not only did we look at internal controls over financial reporting, but we also looked at internal controls over compliance. So the program descriptions, the program management agreements, we made sure that asset allocations were in line. The big thing I'll talk about here in a little bit is the fees. Fees matched all the agreements and were accrued as they were supposed to be. So again, there was no findings, clean audit opinion for both. We perform procedures virtually. We worked with Vanguard through Northern Trust. We've also worked with Ascensus throughout the year. We were able to do all of our testing virtually. We're actually planning to go on site hopefully this June, back to a census for the first time since before COVID, I believe. So that'll be nice to go back, do that face to face, but so there was one really big change for the direct plan this year from June 30, 23, and that was going from the age-based portfolios to the enrollment year portfolios. So what we did, because that's a very large transaction, a lot of moving accounts, moving money in between the portfolios. So what we did, we obtained the trade instructions from a census and from Vanguard, and we made sure that those not only netted to zero, but they were on both the underlying fund side and the portfolios on the participant side, that the money moved like it was supposed to. In addition, we also randomly selected 25 account owners that were in the age-based portfolios. We made sure that those transferred to the correct enrollment year portfolio and the amounts transferred that they should. So no issues there. We tested the plan any which way we possibly can. Every line item, investments, we confirmed investments from investment income. We did participant testing for both plans to make sure that we picked contributions and withdrawals, make sure they were in line with account owner instructions. But fees are a big deal. In our history with auditing 529 plans and even ABLE and state facilitator retirement plans, fees, if something would go wrong, either miscalculation of fees and mispayment of fees is the issue that we have seen. So we test fees very in depth. So what we did is, because that there was that big change from the age-based to the enrollment year, is we actually recalculated fees for each portfolio on the direct plan in depth and agreed those to the program description. In addition, we did that because there was no changes in fees for the advisor plan, we did for the plan wide and matched that to the range in the program description. We also confirmed fees with a census as well. So all that to say is we had no issues. Everything worked like it was supposed to work, which is good. It's not something we definitely want to say anything will happen to. So yeah, everything went great. And but any questions on any procedures we did or the audit reports themselves?
700 hours of work in less than 10 minutes. Good
Yeah.
job, Greg.
Everybody be asleep, including myself.
So, so the bottom line findings are that there are no significant findings
Bottom line findings, there are no findings. Yes, sir.
on both the direct and
Yes, sir.
managed.
Yes, sir.
And that's summarized in these.
In the audit communication letter, yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, and then you were going to talk about.
Yes, sir. So I'm not sure if everybody has, I didn't print those, sent it. Okay, so what we'll do is I'll,
I don't have an extra copy.
Do we have? Are they in our package?
No, they're
No,
not.
that's just something we like to talk from, but if you're interested in the document.
Okay.
you might
and I'll
want
talk
that.
from
Well,
it.
here, I'll let.
So what, as Patty mentioned, we've been auditing the direct plan since 2008. And I believe 2009 was the first year of the advisor plan. And so we went back to 2010. And so there was some very interesting historical numbers to look through. And one of those is net position. So
There we go.
perfect. So if you look at net position for both the direct and advisor plan,
Which is assets under management and everybody else's language.
correct. If you look year over year, there's been an increase except for 2022, which we saw across all plans that we audit. As Patty said, we do about 25 states. And this was solely related to market. The market, for lack of a better term, it stunk. So that led to the decrease because it was seen as second contributions still exceeded withdrawals for that year. So it was solely driven by the net decrease in fair value investments. So since 2010, the direct plan has increased 217%, while the iShares plan has increased almost 2,000%. And so the growth of both of these plans is really fantastic. We've heard discussions from everyone regarding, there's been some, I know Kimberly was talking about, there's some other plans that have seen some decreases. And not only are we seeing increase, but we're still seeing contributions exceeding withdrawals for the direct plan, and the advisor plan for that matter. So, really great growth. On the next page is kind of along those contributions. So every year since 2010, contributions has increased for the direct plan. We saw again across all the plans we audit for 2023, contributions decreased across the board. This is related to, you know, the savings rate related to COVID. People were getting stimulus money, so they were saving it up, and well, then as everything is kind of relaxed, then people weren't saving as much. And so again, we saw that across all the plans. It's not just specific to the Arkansas plans. But still, since 2010, there's been an overall increase from 22.3 million to almost 60 million for the direct plan, and from 22 million to almost 74 million for the advisor plan. So fantastic growth. You'll see there's a couple other decreases for the advisor plan, and that was solely related to incoming rollovers. So, you know, rollovers can change from year to year depending on what other plans are doing, what the advisor plan is doing. And so that's related to those decreases. On the next page is the withdrawals. Again, we're seeing increases across each year. So every year it's increased for the direct plan, almost 266%. The advisor plan, almost 7,700%. Again, the decreases were related to some rollovers out that had decreased. But one thing that I did not put on here was what we like to look at is if you take out rollovers and you look at qualified and non-qualified. So the percentage of qualified, the percentage of qualified against the total non-qualified and qualified for the direct plan since 2010 has not dipped below 94%. So 92% of all withdrawals have been qualified as opposed to non-qualified for those 8%. And that's on average. The first few years, because the numbers are so low for the advisor plan, it kind of skewed the numbers a little bit. But since 2017, it's been above 91%. So still fantastic numbers. On the next page is also something that has been discussed, is the active accounts. So active accounts has increased consistently for both plans year over year from 2010. So you're looking at almost 100% increase for the direct plan and almost 1,000% increase for the advisor plan.
So these are not necessarily funded though, because I know when you're reporting, you look at funded accounts. Some of these may just be open with no balance.
Correct.
But they're still in line with each other, I think.
Correct. And you see for the direct plan, consistently right at 1,000 or over 1,000 accounts per year. And same with the advisor plan. So really, really consistent growth. That speaks to what the committee has done over the past 10 years and continues to do. And the last piece we have is the administrative fees, just kind of breakdown of who gets what and when. As you'll see, the direct plan had a large 18 basis point administrative fee reduction in 2016. So although the net position or the assets under management has grown every year, there's been a few years where fees have decreased because of that lower administrative fee reduction.
The last cut was 2018 or 2019?
For administrative fees?
Yeah. Or was it
I
2016?
think 2016
The last one?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So that's all we have today. We think that this is fantastic, and it shows again the incredible job the committee's done over the past several years. And we'll be happy to answer any questions about this or any of the work that we have done or work we need to do in the future.
Any questions? I don't have any. Great report, thank you. Do we require, no sign either? Thank you.
Thank you.
So is there any new business to come before this committee?
The only thing I have, unless anybody else has any questions, is this discussion about our next meeting. We were tentatively looking at the week of June 10th. June 10th. So I think like that Thursday, which is the 13th, I believe. So I can follow up with everybody.
Treasurer will not be out of town.
I've checked
Yeah,
with
later than that.
Bailey's schedule. I've checked with Bailey on his schedule. That is tentatively what we'd be looking at if that works. So 10 o'clock on the Tuesday. But we'll send out confirmation soon.
Okay, is there any further business come before this committee? Seeing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you, all y'all.
Thank you. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Eric.
Bye, guys. Have a great day.
And you too. Oh.